Good morning once again. I hope everybody can be able to hear me. My name is Helen Wanza and I work for Pamela Steele Associates. Once again, I want to welcome each and every one of you to this workshop, which is a virtual on safe medical waste management. And again, thank you for just getting the time to check in and listen in. And also I want to thank the speakers of this of today's workshop for the time they've taken to just come here and share with us on the safe medical waste management. I will introduce them briefly. One of the speakers is Madam Stella Kamasir from NEMA. She's a regional director. She will introduce herself further when she will be presenting. Then another speaker of ours will be Shadrach Mahonga from Kisumu County Ministry of Health. He's a public health officer. Then the last speaker is Mr. Walter Olo from Kemri, Kisumu. So this workshop basically is about safe medical waste management that was organized by Pamela Steele Associates. So I will start off by giving an overview and also the objectives of the workshop. So the goal of this workshop today is to showcase the key outcomes of the WARM project, which PSA has been conducting together with other partners. And the project was funded by the European Union. Then also another objective is to further raise awareness on the dangers of incineration and the benefits of the non-destructive alternatives, then facilitate discussions for developing specialized guidelines or other protocols aligned with the national standards, then share adaptable resources for humanitarian or low resource contents, and lastly, to strengthen collaboration across health, environment, and humanitarian sectors. The key focus of the workshop is to showcase the dangers of incinerating mixed medical waste and promote the sustainable alternatives that is available currently. And our target participant is local health authorities, facility managers, environmental regulators, humanitarian partners, and the broader community in general. The speakers I had mentioned earlier, all of them are local experts and also medical waste specialists who will share the specialized guidelines, the experiences, and also the practical alternatives. Then I'll just give an overview of the local awareness campaign. This was part of the activities of the broader WARM project. So we conducted a targeted local awareness campaign here in Kisumu, where we engaged the local communities and healthcare facilities on safe, hygienic, and environmentally sound waste handling practices, whereby we were emphasizing the alternative sound treatment methods. And also we used local talent and technology to deliver practical and lasting impact. The purpose of the awareness campaign was to raise community understanding of medical waste management and also dangers of incineration and promote safer alternatives. And also number 2 was to promote sustainable behaviors through the activity of youth engagement and also empower the communities through inclusive engagement and creative expression. Then we also provide practical guidance to healthcare facilities and the general public. The main activities of the campaign, we developed relevant awareness materials. These materials were in form of pamphlets, brochures, and posters, whereby it was distributed in healthcare facilities, in market centers, and also during the World Environment Day that happened here in Kisumu. And also these materials highlighted the color-coded waste bin and also the health risks of toxic emissions, and also it showcased the sustainable disposal techniques. Then another activity, we engaged the youth in the distribution of these materials, and we partnered with a local organization called Misango Arts, which is a performing group based here in Kisumu, which used theater and arts as a tool for social change, education, and also cultural preservation to identify and recruit the youth who distributed these printed communication materials. And also we trained them, and the activity went well because it coordinated the campaign timelines and also activities with the environmental World Environment Day. Then again, these are the same youth. They were the ones who designed murals, which were printed in three different healthcare facilities here in Kisumu. That was Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital, then Lumumba and Kisumu County Referral Hospital. Then another activity was a theater performance. So the Misango Arts Ensemble, they developed and performed a drama piece and poems illustrating the risks of incinerating waste and poor waste disposal. This theater was performed at Mama Grace Onyango Social Hall, which was a pre-activity on the 31st of May. And it was attended by different members of the community. There were university students, county government, healthcare professionals, and also NEMA representatives. And also the same theater, the same drama and poem was also performed during the World Environmental Day. That created a broader impact because the attendees came from different networks such as the civil society and also NGOs, county government, and the general community. The impact that the awareness campaign achieved, that it raised awareness among hundreds of residents and local healthcare staff on the risks of open burning and incineration, and also it showcased practical and safe treatment alternatives. And also it empowered the youth and local creatives as a waste awareness campaign champion. It fostered cross-sectoral partnership and also influenced behavior at the healthcare facility level. So that is the end of my presentation on the local awareness campaign as part of the activity of the One project that will build, which has built up to this workshop today, because now we want to create awareness to the broader audience to be able to showcase the risk that is associated with the improper medical waste management. Thank you for listening in to the first part of the presentation. I now welcome anybody who has a question in regards to this or comment. Thank you. If there is no question until to that point, I will go ahead and welcome the second speaker, who is Mr. Shadrach Mahonga. So Mr. Shadrach Mahonga, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to know if I'm audible enough and if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
So my name is Shadrach Mahonga. I work for the county government of Kisumu, the Department of Health. Professionally, I'm a public health officer. And therefore, this discussion is of paramount importance to me professionally and also as a department. So I'm going to lead a discussion on common waste streams and waste management processes. But I must add that this is within the hospital setup, because we have other waste management processes that happen outside the hospital. But for this discussion, I'll lead on hospital setup, meaning how do we interact, or how do we set up, how do we generate, and how do we handle waste, medical waste within the hospital setup. So to just give you a snapshot, I would like to take patient transit walk within the hospital so that we can appreciate why this particular waste management is a concern. So when a patient arrives at the hospital, but I must add, is not everybody who is in the hospital is sick. We also have people who have just come for other services and not really seeking health services. So they all contribute to the waste problem that we experience in the hospital. So when a patient comes to the hospital, is received at the gate, then it's directed to the outpatient arena. And here, outpatient arena, there are some services that are done. There are some processes that are done at the outpatient arena where the patient is screened. And after screening, then is directed to where that patient is supposed to get the services. So during the screening process within the hospital arena, the consultations happen and the patient might be taken to different pathways. So from here, patients take different pathways. We have some that will be seen and directed to our diagnostic arena or spaces. Diagnostic spaces here include the laboratory and the radiology. So the clinician will direct as appropriate. Then the patient goes to laboratory, brings back the results. He goes to the radiology. And the radiology here, people know it mostly as X-ray, but the radiology is a department that carries out so many diagnostic services, not only X-ray, but we also have like the CT scan, the MRI, and all those radiology services. And then from there, the patient brings back the results. They are interpreted by the clinician. And then three things happen. The patient might be directed to the inpatient for further management and observation. The patient might be sent for treatment. In this case, probably go for pharmacy and go back home, or go for treatment where injections are administered and then go back home. If he is a patient that requires dressing, is taken to the treatment and dressing room, is dressed and goes back home. So during those processes in the outpatient setup, wastes are generated, especially in our laboratory and diagnostic arena or areas. We have wastes that are generated. And then the patient who is takes the pathway to the inpatient, there also is observed for several days, maybe hours, maybe days, maybe weeks, even months. And during all that period that the patient is in the inpatient, there are so many processes that happen during which wastes are generated. So we in the medical fraternity are grappling with so many issues around waste management. So to help us handle this, then I'm taking you through how we identify where the wastes are generated within the hospital setup. And we have said, as I've said, the outpatient, the first contact, the diagnostic processes, the laboratory radiology, wastes are generated, inpatient processes, wastes are generated, theaters, the surgical spaces, the pharmacy, the general offices, the grounds, the plastic, all generate a waste. So you can imagine if we are having a hospital, like within our county, we have 2 or 3 major high volume hospitals. That is the JOTRH, the county, the Lumumba, and even these private hospitals. All of them is a lot of waste that is generated within and has to be managed appropriately. We know we have dangers if we don't actually manage medical waste properly. So many issues, environmental and even infection will happen. So in our hospital, then we come back to the slide that we are seeing there. That slide is showing us some of where we are likely to get the waste and how we actually contain them. So we have these containers within the hospital. We have the sharp boxes. The sharp box in what is being streamed is not there, but this is a box that normally is receiving the sharps. The sharps here means the needle, the syringes, the scalpels, the blades, the needle pricks. Those are all sharps. And these sharps can be infectious. Not that can be, because remember, when a patient comes, we are already suspecting that patient is sick. And when, for example, the syringes that are used to administer the treatment, then obviously is contaminated and can easily cause infection. So we have a safety box that is supposed to contain, and when it is three quarter full, it is closed, and another one is opened. Then we have the color-coded bins. In our arrangement in hospitals, we have three major ones, but they are not only the three. We have several others that are not really given prominence, but they are there. So we have the red coded bin. This one is designed to receive highly infectious waste. The highly infectious, the name suggests, these are waste from our laboratory samples, waste from the infection patients, laboratory processes, pathological processes, samples, body tissues, body fluids, even human organs. These are highly infectious waste that has to be managed well. And here we have designed a red bin, meaning danger. Even we have seen danger when vehicle is having some danger sign, they normally use the red, meaning it's more dangerous. Then we have another one, the yellow coded bin. This one is infectious. The other one was highly infectious. This one is infectious. But being infectious doesn't mean it is less infectious. It only means that when you are comparing the degree of virulence or risks, then the red, if we are putting it at 99%, the yellow one we are putting a little bit down, maybe 75%, but they are all scoring an A, meaning they are all infectious, but the degree of infection varies, but they are all infectious and have to be handled. So here, in the yellow coded bin, we are expecting to find gloves, swabs, even masks. You see, the blood, the IV sets, the bandages, the granulas, which all are operation at the hospital setup and tending to a patient. So we expect this kind of waste to be in our yellow coded bin. Then we have the black bin. This one receives the general non-hazardous waste, like the wrappers, the plastic bottles, the papers in the offices. But within the hospital setup, when segregation is not properly done, nothing is safe here. So even the general, sometimes you experience the black bin. Somebody has mistakenly or unknowingly or deliberately, whatever the case, put there something that is infectious. So even when we are talking of general waste in a black bin, within the hospital setup, nothing can be left to chance. You might still find some infectious waste in a black bin. So here, the point is we need to have a very deliberate segregation mechanism where we classify and put them in the correct bins. But humans, sometimes we make errors, and therefore we all in hospital setup must treat everything suspiciously. Even the black bin, we must still treat it suspiciously because you never know. Somebody might even have dropped there a granula or even a gauze that had been used for cleaning wounds. So that is the ones that are commonly used in the hospital setup. But we have other bins which are not reflected here, like the purple bins that normally we recommend for cytotoxic environment, like in our cancer spaces. That's where we have the purple bin. We also in the hospital setup encourage brown bin. This is for the pharmacy products, and these chemicals, the products, the expired drugs, then we use the brown bin. Then we are also recommending for green or white. White for the kitchen to receive the food remains, and all the green ones. So these ones can be used interchangeably. It is work in progress, but we are eventually thinking of having all the bins recommended to be in the hospital setup. What happens then? We take a journey through what happens. All these areas I've mentioned, the inpatient, the laboratory, the outpatient, and what have you, after the waste have been generated and they're placed in the appropriate bins, we are putting it that segregation has been done properly and all waste is in the correct bins. So this waste is actually transferred from the service area. All these service areas produce waste and they have the bins which are fitted with bin liners. Appropriate bin liners in appropriate color-coded bins. So if you have a red bin, there is a red bin liner in the bin, just to further classify and segregate the waste. So it is picked and transferred. I'm using my words deliberately. I'm saying transferred. I'm not saying transported. So that we know exactly they are being transferred from the service area to a holding area. So during that process of transferring, many things can happen. For example, mixing up again. So we actually have to advise the handlers the need to appropriately handle the waste from the service areas to the holding area. Now, this one is done, say, in a hospital setup in the morning, in the evening. In the morning, in the evening, then you find waste handlers, they are carrying the waste. Or when the bin is full, then they are notified, they come and pick and take them to the holding area. A holding area is very important because this is where further storage, waste is stored for some time. The reason why this one is important because we have facilities that do not treat their waste on site. And therefore, this waste has to be placed somewhere in a holding area awaiting now transportation. And we have facilities that have the treatment plants. This one, they don't really need to hold. Probably the waste will come from the service area direct to the plant for treatment. So in the holding space, this one is just to manage, probably put enough waste that can be now transported to treatment space. So we have two things. One, some facilities will treat the waste on site. Others do not have the treatment plant. they will transport it elsewhere for treatment. So those are the two scenarios in our hospital setup. Now, the method for treatment is entirely due to whatever may have been selected as appropriate. Currently, the method that is being used mostly in our spaces or in our hospitals is incineration. But incineration, as we know it, have its own challenges. And therefore, for this project, I'm aware that we are advocating for alternative ways of treating, especially the medical waste. Medical waste have to be handled with the utmost care, more than anything else, because they are normally infectious. So we have these treatment plants on-site or outside the plant, the facility, where the waste is actually managed. And I've actually indicated the most commonly used is the incinerator, where now we have the incinerator operators who actually make sure that all the waste that is delivered at the incinerator point are appropriately incinerated. We also have other plants like the microwave shredder machine that we normally use to, especially, but it's the only one in the whole county where we are having the microwave shredder, though it is under service. Currently is not really operational, but I'm aware there are plans to revive. So they are now using an incinerator, further complicating our waste management in the county. As we know it, if not appropriately designed with the adequate kilning, the incinerator might not really work appropriately. So I would want to pause there, and probably don't want to lose anyone. If there is any question on the processes or input, I'm seeing my colleagues, the call, probably they could have an issue or just a point in regard to the processes of waste management. For that, then I would want to move to the problem, because I indicated that we normally use incinerator to manage our waste. But adversely, we know incinerators are not really very perfect. And that's why we want to point out some of the issues that come up as when we are doing mixed incineration of waste. So we know that all waste must be handled safely and hygienically. And this is a fundamental thing, because if you don't handle waste properly, then chances are that it will be a cause of so many issues, as you will see later, the causes of not handling waste properly. So in incineration, the fundamental principle is often violated when mixed waste, including hazardous waste materials, are incinerated. And we have a guideline or policy, government policy on incineration, 2006. We have some guidelines. And in that guideline, actually, it is stated that incinerator should be able to attain 1,300 degrees centigrade for it to function properly. For it maybe to be sure that the processes is actually complete. And if you don't have an incinerator that is not able to attain 1,300 degrees Celsius, then we are saying it is working suboptimal. And I've seen several in our setup in the county. Most of our incinerators attain temperatures of up to 800 degrees centigrade. And then that means the process is not complete. It is not really attaining what is actually recommended, or 1,300. And actually, what the problem we are also experiencing, we don't have a 24-hour shift. And you know, a good incinerator should be the one that is able to maintain the 1,300 degrees centigrade for continuously. But now what the practice we are having is we find an incinerator is powered on at 9, and it takes time for it to attain the optimal temperature. So about 3 hours or 4 hours, when it is attaining, you find the incinerator now is being powered down. Now, have we really incinerated well? If we are supposed to attain and maintain, then the incinerator should be working 24 hours so that we are able and we are sure that we are actually at that level continuously. But here's a situation where, for example, you put on the incinerator, you power on at 9, and the level is building up by 130 is when the temperature has now reached where you'd like it to be. So we want to maintain it here, and then you turn it off. So what have we done? It means there is a point there that we need to do, so that we devise a mechanism where we can maintain our incinerators operating 24 hours for us to be sure that we are attaining the 1,300 degrees Celsius. We go back to the slide. Where are the slides? Hello? Helen? Helen? Yeah, so I'll continue. When Helen comes on, he will actually share. So we have the economic consequences of mixed waste incineration. I wish you some of the consequences are: 1, high capital and operational costs. Incinerators are among the most expensive waste management technologies to build and maintain. We know even installing it requires capital. The one I know of was installed at a cost of, through procurement, at a cost of around about 10 million, almost 15 million, the one I'm aware. So it is a costly thing. It requires advanced air pollution control system, skilled staff, and continuous monitoring. I don't know. Is Helen on to give us the slides?
So everybody, I apologize for that. We had a bit of internet hiccup. Let me just share my screen.
Yeah, so we are on the economic consequences of mixed waste incineration. So here I was indicating that incinerators, in spite of not giving us exactly what we want, it's also costly. And there is a high capital and operational costs associated with the incinerators. Developing countries often depend on donor funding, making sustainability very difficult, because even the incinerators we have in operation right now, they're actually donated. We really have not impressed and have the capacity to install them. Then we also have regulatory penalties such as fines for violation, which adds up to the disadvantages of using an incinerator. I would later share, because my experience with these regulatory penalties is that our agencies that are tasked in regulating, for example, the NEMA, sometimes they want the facilities to do emission audits. And these emission audits, NEMA does not do it. It requires that you contract a firm that is supposed to do an emission audit. Then after you've done that, the emission audit, you present the report to NEMA for you to get a permit to operate an incinerator. And all these have cost implications. So sometimes I wonder why, for example, our regulating agencies cannot really come in and assist. Just doing the emission audit, they can't do. You have to contract another firm to do it at a cost. So I would, for the benefit of this sharing, probably if we have somebody from our regulating agents can tell us, why is it that NEMA cannot do audits on behalf of the facilities we have? That we have to contract somebody, pay 300,000 for the emission audit, then pay 120,000 for the permit. It is costly, and some of our facilities cannot actually manage. We also have medical expenses from treating respiratory diseases, cancers, and other illness linked to incinerator emissions. As I said, if incinerators are not properly working, then whatever is going to be emitted from the incinerator as fumes, emissions, they cause cancers, and the cost of treating is actually very high. There is also loss of productivity from sick workers, reduced economic output. We all know if workers, even from the farm that is actually using the incinerator, and the workers there get infected, they will be out of duty for some time for treatment. And that is loss of productivity. Then cost of environmental damage. We know very well these emissions in the oil, in the soil and the water, remediation from toxic and contamination, expensive and long-term. Ecosystem loss, reduce economic benefits from agriculture fisheries because of the pollution of our water bodies and even the agricultural land. It is also expensive to conduct environmental cleanups. So we will now want to pollute, and then when we want to clean, it becomes even more expensive. Next. Next. Oh, no, there is this economic questions. Lost opportunities for circular economy. Incineration destroys recycle and reusable materials that could generate income. The recycling composition industry created more jobs and add value to local economies. Now, these are alternatives. We are talking of if we had alternative ways of actually managing our waste other than incineration, there is actually opportunities for value addition in the waste we generate. And therefore, as much as we are actually using incinerator, we have to be aware that there are dangers that come along when the incinerator is not functioning at optimum level. Then we are doing a disservice to the environment and the general public. I want to pause there and invite some questions on this particular slide on incineration. If there isn't any, so
I've raised the hand. Hello?
Yes, yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mahonga, for that presentation, and Helen. I'll start first question, or maybe a comment for the presentation done by Helen in terms of awareness on the issues of incineration. I saw the posters and the flyers, especially in those hostels, Kisumu County Referral. What I wanted to know is, apart from having the posters in the strategic areas, including they were meant for who? What was the audience meant? I mean, for general public, and these are posters, I think, which should actually target even management first. But more importantly, I wanted to ask whether there was dissemination of these before the, maybe apart from just giving posters, was there some forums that we had discussions before now you decided to place posters all over? Because there was very good information, but it requires somebody who understands. It's not just general public. In terms, if you are talking about incineration is discussed, but I mean, it requires people who are informed and people who are going to take decisions. So if there was any disseminations, then on the other place, I think just a comment that eventually, I think the world is going to non-ban technology, and I think running equipment for non-ban technologies, you have seen, is very difficult in Kenya, and especially Kisumu. We are aware that Ministry of Health supported some counties. I think 9 counties or 8 in Kenya to have a microwave and shredders, but you'll find out of that maybe 2 or 3 are only the ones who are working. MTRH, I think Nakuru. We need to look at what are we not doing good, especially in Kisumu, that it's not our nini is not functioning. If you go to one MTRH is functioning and they are able to make money. So what you are from other sources, they don't just rely on the government. So we need to look in terms of how you can make circular economy from incineration and these non-ban technologies. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Sirima, for the very good comments and for the question on dissemination of the awareness materials. So as you know, we've been working with the county government because the targeted local awareness campaign was mainly here in Kisumu. But the good thing is that from the onset of the project, from the research, from the interviews, we've been working with the health facilities here in Kisumu. And so in regards to that, all the information that we were putting on the materials, we were trying to make it as simple as possible, because the audience was not only the management or rather the staff, because we understand that this information from the doctors, from the West people, most of the people they know, but when it comes to maybe just reminding them and also just trying to enforce it, that's why we're putting the brochures and trying to distribute it in every health facility that we were able to. And also in terms of trying to capture the attention and also trying to use other ways that can be of impact, that's when we try to use the theater, where we invited people, many people, where we were trying to, we discussed the issues and also presented this information in terms of poems and drama, and also during the World Environmental Day, because we understand most of the times we just say it, or rather we put it in paper, and
Hello, Helen, are you on? Helen?
Like you have lost her.
Yeah, it seems as we have lost Helen again. But the point I was trying to make, I'm sure Mr. Sirma was trying to address the issue of the poster and why we designed it. It was designed the way it was designed, so that the information therein, because it's targeting everybody, including even the clients who are coming to our facilities, including the hospital staff, including the management. And before it was displayed on the talking walls, the management of the hospital was sensitized, and exactly the information that was to be put on the wall, they already had it on a pamphlet. So they were sensitized adequately before it was put on the wall. Therefore, the target here, waste management in hospital setup is for everyone, meaning it is a concern for the patient, the clients, the patient attendants, the hospital, the staff, everybody. So that if we manage it well and everybody is sensitized, then the idea is we'll have proper segregation. Because the problem we have mostly is segregation of waste at point of generation. We have a patient who is having probably some kind of papers, some bottle, and is throwing it anyhow. So it becomes very difficult to manage. So this information is, as much as it may not be adequate, is just trying to sensitize the general public and the West. Then the other issue on the technologies which you raised, we are aware operating such non-ban technologies can be costly. And therefore, what happens in that, we are trying to encourage the partnerships. The partnerships here, because the county government might not do it alone. The government can't do it alone. And therefore, that's why even this particular engagement we are having supported a partnership. They were encouraging. In our discussion at the end of this, we may come up with steps ahead, and that we can discuss more appropriately what needs to be done for us to embrace the non-ban technology. What needs to be done should be coming at the end of this discussion so that we know who's going to do what in the direction that we want to take. So it is still work in progress. We are not yet there, but I think, even the most heavy burdens, you start by the first step. So Ellen, are you back?
Yes, I'm here. There is a question from Tonui. Mr. Tonui, go ahead and ask your question.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Now, mine is not actually to ask a question. There is something that is mentioned about NEMA's role in environmental audits, which I want to touch because I am not seeing anybody from NEMA attempting to touch on that. For real, treatment of waste is an expensive venture, and it's left with the generators of waste by law to meet the costs of treating waste. However, on the aspect of environmental audits, it is not within the purview of NEMA to undertake environmental audits for facilities. One, because facilities are supposed to do self-auditing, to audit themselves for purposes of improvement, for purposes of continuous improvement. And therefore, every facility should have the technical expertise or the technical know-how on how to undertake these audits. Another thing, only NEMA steps in when there is an issue, and it doesn't do the annual environmental audits. It does the control audits. That is when you are suspected to be in violation of some sort. So that is when NEMA can engage its resources to do a control audit. The control audit will look like somehow an investigative audit to confirm or to rule out some suspected malpractice. If I touch a bit about the experts who are engaged in doing the audits, the presenter Mahoga talked of 300,000, which goes to the expert. He also talked about 100,000 that goes for the permit. Well, let me say something about the permit. NEMA currently does not charge anything for environmental audits. There was a proposal, but it's still in the pipeline. So NEMA doesn't issue any permits. So there is this 100,000. Maybe you were talking about environmental impact assessment, which is done to a new project. But for environmental audits, there is no charges. There are no levies to that effect. Now, for an expert who does the audits whom you may engage, I think to me 300,000 is on the upper side. Even though on matters government, I always see people trying to overcharge. But for the private entities, I think they don't even charge more than 50,000. I've seen people do audits. I've seen hospitals do audit. And they do as little as 30,000. That is when you don't have the expertise or you don't have the time or you just want somebody independent to do it for you. So that is what I have.
Thank you.
I'm rising to speak about.
Okay.
Thank you,
Mr. Tonui, for those insightful comments. Over to you, Peter Ogwer.
Yes, good morning, colleagues and team. I had questions, but I wanted to follow up on the NEMA audits. This is something that it has come up from time to time in discussions on compliance management in environment. And sometimes we ask questions such as, if, for example, you bring me a private audit firm to audit a project that I have, and I'm supposed to pay this private firm, how objective is this findings or results? This somebody is like my employer. Of course, it's supposed to give both advice and positive feedback so that the NEMA can rely on this audit to either issue a license or not issue a license. These are to me, these are a conflict of interest. You cannot, if you send a firm to me to pay for audit, do you expect objective report from this firm as a NEMA authority so that you give up a license knowing that all the conformities and all the compliances will be affected? Secondly, areas of competencies of departments, like Department of Health, we have Public Health Department, adequately competent in issues of waste and other things, even in built environment. We receive an assessment report, the audit report, as secondary, just to make a comment, and you're given days to make comment. If that the 7 days lapse, the audit, actually the license will be issued. How can we integrate these departments that are key components of built environment so that this report is organic from all the departments that are involved in the built environment? Now, my questions also goes to Mahonga. You look at the byproduct of the shredder. Actually, that to me, as far as I know, if I'm to be corrected, This was an unburnt process where the products were shredded and then decontaminated, and then they could be safely disposed.
Can I
Mr.
answer something?
Mis-
Sorry.
Mr. Ogwell, are you still there? If not, I think we should move on to the next presentation and hold our thoughts
That
there
they were
because we'll. Hello.
Where is back? Where is back?
Okay. Ogwell, go ahead.
Okay. I'm talking about the shredder products that were a byproduct of the processes that were meant to decontaminate the waste and then make them very easy for handling and safe for disposal. When you look at this product, they were very rich in energy, and they could be used for briquettes for firing, and could even be used for cooking and things like that. These products stayed there for a very long time. We're looking for ways of transporting them to landfill. And I look at this product and I thought it could be used as a byproduct of as a product, for example, in making briquettes and other things that we can fire these GCOs, community GCOs that we have in the county. That was never happened. Eventually the shredder went down, it's not functioning currently. This is an missed opportunity. And I think even if the shredder was very expensive to tens of millions, I think the products would have been very useful in economic sense. I think Mahonga will comment on that. Then another thing that I'm looking at, we are discouraging burnt processes like incineration as a means of managing waste. Do we also consider the capacity of the environment, for example, to absorb the minimal burning that we are doing in our health facilities, so that when we are talking about, for example, the damage that we have in the environment, we're also talking about carbon credit and of course things like encouraging more forestation to absorb some of these processes so that it's not overly harmful to the environment. So that we have an ecology that is self-sustaining. If we can also promote that kind of understanding among the practitioners so that we don't overly criticize the very simple, cheap ways of also managing this waste within our health facilities. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, Mr. Ogwet, for the question and also for the comment. I will allow Mr. Shadrach Mahonga to answer this after the last slide. Please hold your thought there so that you can move on to the next presentation because of time. Thank you. Welcome, Stella. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for your active participation. When I look into my few slides, I am actually seeing that we've preempted from our discussions and the questions being raised on the gaps and the challenges we have regarding what we already have in our policy and legal and regulatory framework. Because we have all these laws, regulations, and guidelines. But the question still arises. Why are these not being implemented? What are the weak points? What are the challenges we are having? And I'm tempted to actually make this more of a plenary because the answers are on the floor. My colleague, I'm from NEMA, yes, the National Environment Management Authority. I have colleagues on the page, and I thank you, Tanui, for stepping in. There was something I know you are to raise, and I would still wish that you bring that up again, even as we are doing this discussion. Let me just bring in some good news. Peter Ogwell has kind of preempted into that. we may be having these challenges. And what are these challenges? A study by the Ministry of Health gave some few outlines. 40% of healthcare facilities have only 40% of healthcare facilities have operational healthcare waste management committees. 70% of these facilities, countrywide that is, they have no healthcare waste management plans, and 38% in a good way have appropriate have the appropriate storage areas for their waste. I'm mentioning areas that is across the waste management chain. And then for us from NEMA side as a regulator, less than 10% of healthcare facilities are compliant to the requirements of waste management with regard to their operations in how even some of the existing facilities, say even those that have incinerators, are these incinerators operating in the manner in which they are supposed to operate? For example, the minimum temperature should be 800 degrees Celsius, and the residence time is also defined in the regulation. The maintenance of these facilities are also questionable. But then again, we realize these are incineration on its own is a destructive process because it destroys resources. We have energy that can be conserved or drawn from the heat being generated, and also the material being burnt, which otherwise would have been recycled. Although for medical waste, the challenge is for anything to be recycled, it has to be safe to be recycled, and it has to be recycled for non-medical products after that. So these are kind of the challenges we are facing right now. But let me just give some good news. The Kenya National Cleaner Production Center, KNCPC in short, had some projects on cleaner production, that is resource efficiency and cleaner production. In these processes, in this program, the intention and the objective was that right from the beginning of where our waste streams begin to the end, like running through the pipe, assuming this is a pipe, that we are looking into cleaner processes from the beginning to the end, not just as looking at managing our waste that has been produced. Is there a way to minimize this waste from the beginning, reduce along the way, what can be recycled, what resource can be drawn from the waste, and then now the ultimate disposal or treatment. There are several hospitals that participated in the program, and good enough, there was good outcome out of it. One of them being our own big hospital, KNH, the Kenyatta National Hospital. I'm trying to get, yes, the Kenyatta National Hospital. And the common thing that was running across all the hospitals was the determination of the waste streams, so that it creates the basis on which now to develop the appropriate strategy for their management. So with KNH, on top of the incineration, there was also, I think, expansion of the autoclaving system. But now what was being drawn as a cleaner way was heat recovery, because the heat recovery process was meant to help in the laundry area, that is the boilers in the laundry area. And the heat requirement for these hospitals, now KNH being one of those in the program, the Nairobi Hospital, the Mater Hospital, and Gertrude's Headquarters Hospital, that was the main need. And what they realized is that that was for KNH, Kenya National Hospital, Kenyatta rather. There was a 30 to 40% saving on their power consumption. That is huge. And that is just but one of the benefits in the program. And the possibilities for this to expand is still high. And they are looking into ways to move, because this was more of a pilot. more ways in which other hospitals can incorporate into this, even as we look into a wider scope of applying resource recovery and pollution prevention in our medical facilities. Just based on that portion, I wish to turn this back. Why are we having these challenges? It has already been mentioned before. The compliance requirements may be high. The cost of the compliance requirements are costly in terms of even just beginning in the process of environmental impact assessment in setting up a new facility, environmental monitoring processes, such as the environmental audit, the tests that are required for water quality, and also for air quality, in order to control air emissions. So the cost elements cut across the board, and it will be one of the challenges. What are these other challenges that we need to face with? But I'm also posing another question. In what ways have we been able to surmount these challenges in a way that can help others also who are here to learn? What are some of the good practices or good strategies that have been employed as a way for all of us to learn? Because for us, all this is a learning platform, and for us who are from the regulatory agencies, would be more pleased to learn some of this, because we also do what we call compliance assistance programs. And in us knowing what has worked, what has not worked elsewhere, it will help us to inform and create awareness to even other similar entities for that. Thank you. I welcome your views regarding the challenges, the best way, what has been working, and how can we improve on it. Would I ask Mr. Tanui to raise the matter that he had raised initially? And I would also wish to ask Mr. Mahonga, what other good practices have been there besides maybe those two that I've mentioned that I may not be aware of, but that others can also learn from the same.
Helen, you there?
Yes, yes.
How do we proceed?
There is a question, or rather a comment from Haproc. Haproc, please go ahead.
Good morning. Hope I'm audible. Thank you for the presentation, but one thing I've joined late, sorry for that. But looking forward for the right method of disposing the medical waste, and not just the medical and hazardous waste. Now I'm also as HAPROC. Basically, HAPROC is a PRO handling hazardous packaging past consumer. I think you have known that there's a new regulation for last year, 2024. The EPR regulation, extended producer responsibility, where whoever is introducing anything to environment should supposed to take care of it past consumer level. And that PROC is dealing basically on the hazardous. We talk about pharmaceutical and healthcare, as well as agrochemical. They're talking about the pesticide packaging. So the only thing now, with guidance with the MCA, our PROC is supposed to look for other methods. But with this kind of presentation, that's why I feel that I've missed it. I want to know exactly what are these new measures now, the new ways to take care of this hazardous and the contaminated waste, because we have other PROs who are talking about circular economy, but hazardous as HAPROC, we are still talking about a linear economy. Going back to incineration, again, also converting waste to energy. We also need a lot of energy, and also emission tracings up there when you burn at those high temperatures. So we are looking forward maybe to have this more conversation, and maybe to be guided on which is the right way, because also we need to get into research of the same. But I know people have been there, will be able to guide us well. So basically, I'm looking forward to learn and to be exposed to much of this learning, and maybe if they have so this kind of meeting to be joined. Otherwise, it's a good thing, but we really want to understand what is the way forward. Because when we go to sensitization, we are telling members, the speakers, when this is picked, we are supposed to collect and take for installation. But still, we are also being reserved that it is also causing a lot of cause of harm to the environment. Which is the best way and maybe efficient way and a cost-effective way? Thank you.
Thank you, Haprock, for your comments and also informing us that you're dealing with the hazardous waste, and we want to know, to get more information in regards to what is the best way forward. In regards to that, considering we have another information, or rather the slides from speaker from Cambridge, we will allow this discussion to be picked on after the Cambridge presentation. So Haprock, please, I would request that you hold the thought there still. We will pick it up from there. So Madam Stella, you can proceed with the remaining part of the presentation so that you can move on to the last presentation and continue with this very good discussion. Thank you.
We actually acknowledge that the challenges we are having stem from, apart from the process itself of healthcare waste management, is the roles of different stakeholders across the waste management value chain. I would rather call it a value chain because there is a lot to draw out of it. We have the regulatory agencies, we have the non-governmental organizations who are promoting advocacy. We have the staff and employees working in this entity. Are they aware? Do they know the protocols? When you look into the healthcare waste management guidelines, less than 20% of the facilities countrywide actually had these guidelines in their facility, leave alone being disseminated. We have the tools, but are we utilizing them? The communities around us, do they know the expectations from them, but also from those around them? Because we monitor, our communities also help us to monitor what we are doing. They are the public eye to which we look up to, we answer to in a way, because it is the public we are serving, especially as regulatory agencies. When you look at the policy gap and the opportunities for improvement, we have penalties, yes, but are these penalties being imposed? Are our prosecution processes helping us to create the deterrence that is required? For enforcement has been a challenge, not for one regulatory agency, but across many. One, because of capability in terms of available staff, available equipment, and also actually for monitoring equipment. If we had continuous monitoring equipment, then it would be possible to have an easier way for enforcement. Again, do we have incentives for adopting these non-ban technologies? They may be saying, do we really have to be incentivized to do the right thing? But it is a human natural trigger that this will direct you to a better way of doing things. But as we heard even from HAPO, the opportunities yet for this in the circular economy concept and component. We have the extended producer responsibility regulation, which were recently taken up in our country, and HAPROC are coming up. Such organizations as HAPROC, as an extended producer responsibility organization, which brings together different producers, is able to still find value in this process by enabling whoever is using the materials and the products to have a way back, to have a way of their waste getting back, or waste materials getting back to somebody who will help them identify even different people who are going to treat or recycle or do something for disposal. The regulatory compliance mechanisms are there, from policy, law, regulations, and guidelines. It is a call upon us actually to adopt them and work with them. the international regulations all the way from WHO and even the Basel Convention and the Stockholm protocols, Stockholm Convention, and the specific technical guidelines provided by Basel give us a way to handle and to know the way forward. The challenge, of course, will still be, do we have the resources, the capability, the technological, and even material resource and even personnel to do this. These are all mechanisms that need to be put in place as we look into a better way of moving forward as a country. Thank you. So as institutions, healthcare facilities, I know a few may be represented here because most of us here will be coming from regulatory agencies and even now the other stakeholders that have mentioned themselves here. We are challenged as regulatory agencies to have the regular inspections. I know we are being called to do the environmental audits ourselves, but as NEMA, we do the control audits. And as Tanui mentioned earlier, if it's been identified that there is something that's still wanting either in your process or there's been a complaint, or we have raised it as an issue out of the environmental audit that you have submitted to us, the control audit we do is actually to come and ascertain that what you've given us or what you've been reporting as you've been doing is actually what is happening. But out of that now, we come up with an improvement plan together with the entity in how the processes are going to be improved in that facility through your actions, but also improving our processes as a monitoring agency. We've had several issues regarding medical waste management, where in our waste management facilities, let me not say waste management facilities, in the designated disposal sites, we have presence of medical waste, of which they are not supposed to be there. And funnily enough, it is almost always possible to trace back to where the waste came from. Prosecution has been a challenge, or let me say from enforcement prosecution has been a challenge in that regard, but it doesn't negate the fact that the offense was committed in the first place. Our close monitoring of the environmental impacts of this can be seen even with our own eyes. We have people who are handling waste in these facilities, and as we're moving forward to a community that will look into waste as a resource, these are things that we must prevent from happening so that others are able to handle that waste, either for separation, for recycling, and treatment. Because the receptacles of our waste also have organic waste. How can these organic waste be composted for other use if there is presence of medical waste? So we are looking into also the opportunities in the circular economy sector, promoting reuse, repair where possible, and every form of material recovery before disposal. And then, of course, together with WAM, of which I thank them for the opportunity even to support NEMA for the World Environment Day and other awareness programs, that there is continued community awareness and also awareness creation and capacity building in healthcare facilities. And it is our hope that we're able to transition from the disease of disposal to resource management as we look into the many opportunities in the circular economy sector in closing the loop for our waste so that there are no spills of our waste in a way that is, of course, not living. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Stella, for that insightful presentation. Now we'll move on to Mr. Walter Olof from Cambridge. Mr. Walter, you can go ahead and
Okay, good morning. Yes, feel most welcome to the discussion, which is really very vital towards the safety awareness regarding the waste management. So I'm Walter Olo. I work in Cambridge as the safety officer. And my topic is actually safe alternative to waste incineration. So these are actually widely recognized safer and more sustainable alternatives to incineration, which we actually use for treating the healthcare and the general waste. And some of the safe alternatives in use are actually the autoclaving. So autoclaving uses a pressurized steam to sterilize infectious waste, and it actually makes it safer for disposal. And this steam is at high temperature of about 121 to 134 degrees Celsius for a set duration of time in order for it to destroy the pathogens. It is emission-free, and it has actually gotten wide usage in places like Kisumu, Nairobi, and even places like India. Over 70% of all stalls uses the autoclaving. It is highly effective, and it usually kills microorganisms, including even the resistant spores. It does not produce the toxins like the dioxins, the furans, etc. But again, it also reduces the waste volume moderately. Then the other alternative is microwaving. Microwave achieves disinfection where we use the moist heat and microwave energy, but it kills 99% of the pathogen. It was actually piloted at Mulago Hospital in Uganda, according to UNEP 2023. And its advantage is actually energy efficient, and it is relatively faster. It has got no harmful air emission, and it can actually also be done on site, and that actually reduces the transportation risk. The other alternative means that we can use is actually the chemical disinfection. And here we use chlorine. We also use other agents to destroy pathogens in liquid waste, such as for the case of Ebola outbreak in West Africa. It is actually best for liquid waste, as I've said, like now the bloodborne, urine, obstal effluents, and also even sometimes sharps after shredding. It is very simple and relatively inexpensive for liquids. It is effective against a broad range of pathogens. And then the other alternative that we use or we need to employ is actually the sanitary landfills. Properly engineered landfills will actually prevent the leakage which actually contaminate and capture the methane for energy use, like the one for the Dandora landfill upgrade. But here, the waste is disposed in engineered sites, which is actually designed with protective liners. And it also have the leakage collection and covering soil layer. This will actually help to minimize the environmental contamination. But then treatment of medical waste, general hazardous waste, is actually very essential for this. It provides the final safe disposal but again, it has to be combined with other treatments. Then we have the hierarchy of waste. So according to the waste hierarchy, it is a guiding principle for sustainable waste management, and it prioritizes that we need to start from the most preferred to the least. And here we need to reduce the amount of waste that we're actually producing, which will avoid waste in the first place. We also need to reuse. We need to extend the life of the products by reusing them. There's also need for us to recycle these products so that at least we make new material from them. And it is also very vital for us to recover energy like the biogas and the waste to energy form that can actually also be used. And then we can now have a land disposal or incineration, which actually falls on low on this hierarchy, because this will be considered the least. We also need to have the source reduction and reuse. This will help to tackle waste at its source, and it is very critical because, as we are aware that the person generating the waste is the person who is actually charged with the responsibility of actually segregating this waste so that you know which one goes where. To what my colleague from the public health did say, that we have the bin liner so that at least as you generate it, you know the highly infectious go to red, infectious goes to yellow, the general non-infectious goes to black, and then we have the sharp containers and so forth. And again, in so doing also, we need also to promote the policies that will encourage the manufacturer also to reduce the packaging and also design products for durability and also the repair. We can also have the advanced recycling and composting, which will include the mechanical biological treatment, where waste is mechanically separated and then treated biologically. We can have aerobic digestion for organic waste, and this process will turn food scraps and other organic waste into a cleaner energy, a nutrients-rich fertilizer. This will actually be free from harmful emission of incineration. So recycling reduces the volume of waste, requiring treatment, and preserves valuable resources. For example, the Kigali Green Park in Rwanda. Then there is also need for us to have the policy and community action. So where we need to advocate for policy that prioritize recycling and composting new incineration and construction, and supporting local business and organizations that promote a circular economy. And the policy intervention will actually help, where now the government will set a framework through the law, incentives, and regulations to help ensure that, for example, like now the bans on the single-use plastic that was extended producer responsibility in the 2017, which was actually enforced by the NEMA, that actually helped to enforce and reduce some waste that could actually just be pilfering within the community, so that now the other plastic bags will actually come in place. We can also involve the community, like the school, the citizens, we the stakeholders, the people on board here like this, so that at least we know that we have the vital role to play in implementing these policies. We can have the cleanup drives, waste segregation at source, recycling and corporate awareness and campaigns. We can also do grassroots action and ensure policies are successfully, because waste management depends heavily on public participation. And the combined effort, where we combine the policy structure and the community action, will actually drive the participation of waste and circular economy. And now in Kemri, a case study here, we normally do segregation at the source, where the highly infectious waste will actually be placed at the red bin liners, and the infectious will actually be placed at the yellow. The general or the non-hazardous one will actually go to black. But then, of course, we also have the sharp containers. After doing that, this waste will actually be autoclaved so that the infectious waste are actually sterilized fast. Then we have also liquid treatment, where we have the EDL plant using the aerobic process. And this one is now like acting as the sewer plant. We normally have a place designed for it because we do our own waste management within the facility. But then at the end of the day, after the aerobic reaction has taken place, where the water has actually been turned now from one chamber to the next until it goes through all the 4 chambers, then now the water is taken via the pump through the sprinkler to our ground. But then this water is actually being verified or tested through the NEMA approved labs. We normally do it at the government chemist to ensure that water that we also put in our ground is actually very safe. In line with that, because we are handling the VBMs, there's actually high levels of screening. The 24-hour surveillance CCTV and the fire alarm, this actually prevents the intentional or unintentional release of these materials into the environment, so that at least we are sure that what we have is actually maintained and managed within the facility. However, we have advanced incinerator, which is actually coupled with a scrubber. There's still an alternative means, because we realize that incineration, the cost of installing it is really very high. The electricity component, there's also the fuel issue and so forth, and even also the environmental impact that it actually has. So there's need for alternative to incineration, and that's why now the autoclaving, effluent treatment, segregation remains central, integral part in this approach. And therefore, KEMRI shows a safe alternative are real, therefore practice and effective in Kenya. And there's need for us to embrace such kind of alternative means for us to ensure that we have a safe and free environment to stay in. And now the key consideration, we have to consider the safety, where we have to protect the healthcare workers, the waste handlers, and the general public from exposure to these hazardous materials. It is a duty for each and every person to ensure that this is done. And this can only be done when we use the most appropriate means of waste disposal mechanism. And then we also need to ensure environmental impact, where we will minimize the pollution and ensure eco-friendly disposal methods are actually in place. We also need to have the cost management. We need to balance the effective waste management with cost-efficient practices that we normally have in use. And there's need for public awareness, where we educate the community about the proper medical waste disposal to prevent illegal dumping or scavenging by the animals, the birds, and so forth. And this process will ensure that medical waste is managed responsibly, reducing health risk and environmental harm while complying with regulatory standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walter, for the presentation. I must say that the case study that you did put there, we personally visited KEMRI and we saw what they're doing with the medical waste management in their facility. And I must say that you are really doing a good job. It's not like other facilities are not doing it, but we saw that that is actually an ideal practice that we can say that it's happening on ground. Thank you so much for everybody who has listened in, and for the speakers, Mr. Shadrach Mahonga, Madam Stella, and Walter, for the very, very insightful presentation that you've given us. Now we'll jump into the Q&A, and any comments from the audience and anybody who has something to say in regards to the whole presentation. We'll pick up from the initial comments and the initial question that was raised from Mr. Peter Ogwell in regards to the microwave shredding. in one of the facilities here in Kisumu that will be that I will allow Mr. Shadrack Mahonga to step in on that, and also in regards to the best way forward that HAPROC HAPROC coordinator also asked about. So I invite Mr. Shadrack Mahonga to. Oh, okay. I see a hand from the audience. Please go ahead and pop the question before Mr. Shadrack Mahonga takes on.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to come into between, but so I to just congratulate all the speakers, very good points, and emphasize on 2 points and put 1 point on the table to discuss. So great points in the last presentation, emphasizing on reduction need, also on the fact that incineration is not an appropriate solution. Sorry, I did not introduce myself. I'm from Africa Circular. We work at continental level with the African Union Commission, as well as in different countries working on circular economy strategies. And my background also is in Europe. I worked with different waste streams in Europe. So from the systemic perspective, incineration is wrong on about all those matters that you mentioned, but I would add 2 more. It creates a lock-in effect that obliges a constant production of waste to be fed to incinerator. That creates a contract by the hospitals that they become more and more expensive. And we can see it's happening in Africa as well. Whenever an incinerator is created for hospital waste, the cost increases every year. And as we have seen here in Europe, hospitals can't manage those costs. So the hospitals must be given the flexibility to choose the option they want in future, not to lock in themselves to any tricky situation. And another point is also that we haven't spoke about it, but those incinerators also create toxic ashes, emissions into the air, but also the ashes. And those ashes are very toxic and have to be disposed in a special landfills that are very expensive landfills. I doubt that those exist in many places, especially in, for example, in Kisumu. And 1 point to discuss, I wanted to emphasize that not enough was spoken separation at source. So not source separation. The worker should be given standard operating procedures that they have to sort the hazardous waste from non-hazardous waste. Just, keep in mind that less than 10% of hospital waste is hazardous. The other is not. It's similar as municipal solid waste. So it can be treated cheaper in a standard, conventional places, cheaper. So remaining only 10, even less than 10% is hazardous. So if we correctly source separate, then we also have much less actually to deal with. This means we don't need to aim into big installations. So just saying that from the perspective from the continental and European level to avoid the false solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baza, for that very insightful comment and putting that on the table for discussion. Mr. Mahonga or Walter, would you like to step in on that? And the previous question on the microwave with shredder?
Let me pick from where Mr. Guel left. And Mr. Guel's concern is very genuine, because actually the initial principle about introducing the shredder was actually to the byproducts, that there should be value addition to the shredded material in such a manner that whatever comes out is also turned, recycled to make some form of economic gain. However, in our practice, and I had the privilege of interacting with the shredder at Jotia Edge, that did not materialize because of systemic challenges. I think the capacity to come up with some form of maybe process of how we can now change the byproducts into something useful, that capacity was not available. And therefore, that calls for probably outsourcing that particular component so that somebody else, an investor, is able to pick it up and create value of the product. But at a city, it is now, I think the hospital becomes constrained to really move ahead and make economic value out of the byproducts of the shredder functionality. Mr. Oguel also mentioned the issue of why we really so much against the incinerator. And I want us to mention something that I think probably could give us a way out about the scrubber. The scrubber could give us another form of probably trying to make good use of the incinerator. I'm aware it is actually very expensive to install a scrubber. The last time and I experienced this where it was installed, it malfunctioned. So it did not even attempt to realize the intention of installing the scrubber. So we must be having somewhere probably where the water-based scrubber has been installed and is working, so that probably that can be a way of minimizing the air pollution from the incinerator. Because if we can have a way of minimizing the pollution of the air from the incinerator, then incinerator becomes adaptable. In also, we are not really dismissing it, but is there something that can be done? And here I'm calling about Madam Stella because they are part of the policies makers who actually introduced the scrubber, but now that scrubber didn't function. What is the way forward? Do we have an alternative way of installing a scrubber so that it can still work as we look for the alternatives? Okay, that is a pause which we may want to continue discussing on. Another issue which I wanted to mention from Madam Stella's presentation, autoclaving looks something that is very, 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 very okay. But what is the cost implication of installing such a mechanism? Probably we would require some kind of a partnership to see if our facilities locally can be able to embrace that, so that we move forward. And autoclaving has also another added advantage, the powering our systems and the reducing the cost of power in all our facilities. But the initial installation of autoclaving mechanism could also come with a cost, which probably most of our facilities might not really manage. And also the volume of the waste that is actually required to run that autoclaving. Probably some facilities may not. It may work in other hospitals like the bigger ones, Jot we have, but in these other smaller facilities, then it becomes a challenge unless we want to mobilize all the waste and take it to one central place for autoclaving. Then I also wanted to mention something on Madam Stella's presentation. Best practices, because we know from the Basel Convention, and this one is also outlined in our local county waste management policy and guideline, that we restrict cross-border movement of hazardous waste. And I want to believe that medical waste is also one of the most hazardous waste around. But actually we are seeing in some major hospitals in town, they are moving out of this county, their medical waste to be treated. They have contracted a firm to cut away those medical waste to some other across border, that is for treatment. Probably we may want to look at this and see whether the Basel Convention is being adhered to by your agents, because this restrictive is not really being adhered to when hospitals are allowed to cut away And you know, these farms that are actually cutting away these hazardous waste have been licensed and given permits by NEMA. And then I would also want to look at sensitization, which was a key point which you brought out, and monitoring. And it may look like NEMA is restricted to only monitoring. And this I'm talking in line with the issue of the audits, the emissions audits and the environmental audits, which are contracted, outsourced. I'm looking at a situation where probably NEMA can be added other mandates other than monitoring. They also come in and help in this issue of auditing. Because as Mr. Guel was pointing out, if I'm the one now paying, do you think there is an element of compromising the report? I'm thinking probably this one should just be taken up by the licensing agents, such that you are aware what you audited is exactly what you are issuing the license upon. Because somebody has been paid to do a report, and we are in this area where somebody can even maybe produce a report that is favorable, and you'll come in now to monitor, and then you say this report is not okay. Why can't we synchronize so that we don't have to double the check? So that when it is done, we know NEMA has done it, and it is actually, we don't need another second thought on confirming it. So probably we can increase the mandate of NEMA to that extent. You don't really have to contract, outsource, and then you come in to monitor. Incentives for non-ban is very, very important, Madam. I'm happy you brought it up, because you know non-ban mechanisms are actually very, very expensive to install, and probably we may be looking at, if, for example, JOT has put in place an non-ban mechanism can be used across the country, within the county. What incentives can we give JOT? Because you know JOT sometimes struggles with these permits that I'm telling you, they're expensive. They're actually expensive. The audits, I experienced it when we wanted to do it. It is that value which I was quoting. And even the NEMA permit, if it is now free, I'm not sure, because all along the years when the incinerator was working, we were paying 80, and then it went to 120 to get the NEMA permit for the incinerator. So it is a costly venture, and therefore when a facility now adapts a non-ban, probably such levies can be they can be exempted, so that they can continue serving in that particular area, because now it becomes very costly. The other issue I wanted to mention on the shredder functionality, because to me that is the only viable mechanism that we can, as hospitals, we can really pick it up. But it comes with the challenges, the cost, maintenance costs, and in fact the cost of even evacuating the shredded material is actually very expensive to manage. So I don't know how we can come in and promote this and give incentives and see how we are going to manage using the non-ban without actually the budgets that come along with operating such particular plants. The shredder installation is very expensive. Running it, the power is expensive. The shredded waste, expensive to evacuate, now becomes very, very, very expensive to manage. So that is an area that is actually, we need a collective partnership so that we see how we can address it. Address my case.
Thank you, Mahonga, for that. I will allow Madam Stella to jump in.
I'll try and make this fast. I was hoping Pio would be here. I'm not able to see him, but he raised a very valid issue about the direction as considering incineration as a treatment method, while others in the world are moving away from it. The way the world is also moving away from the landfills, and it's not a direction we take. First, I don't know, we'd mention about the landfill. We do not have a single landfill in this country. And yeah, that raises the question, if we are to generate any other hazardous material from the incinerated ash or something like that, where would it go? We will not have a place for that. But I'm just raising a matter to HAPROC. You can see the opportunities you have in the healthcare sector, that there are materials that can, a lot of materials that can be salvaged to recycling and the rest, that would be an opportunity to you. Mr. Mahonga, I'm just thinking that these high levies we will feel them, they're high, but it is also helping us in a different way. It's creating a disincentive so that we start looking for better ways to handle this. I just want to mention the opportunities that come with us adopting the extended producer responsibilities and opportunities that come with that. Now, the producer responsibility organizations are at a very good vantage point to catalyze recycling initiatives. One, they are in the mechanism of how they are to operate. They help in identifying facilities, and sorry, not identifying facilities. They help facilities to identify recyclable materials. Secondly, I'll just mention briefly, facilitating infrastructure and logistical support. Say, for example, the reverse logistics. If material A came from B, went through C to facility D, it can still go back from DC, B to the manufacturer A. The same way, or in a differently defined way, but more or less in the same path. So that me as a producer, for example, I'm able to take responsibility for the material that went out, and the person who used it is also able to pay something towards the management of that material now as a waste product. The PROs, the producer responsibility organizations, are also able to support establishment of temporary storage systems. I'll give an example of what is happening now in Kisii County and Kisumu County. That's not on medical waste though. The county government, together with some PROs, are establishing material recovery facilities. Although now we understand with healthcare facilities, they can have their own, within their own facility, they will have the recovery facilities from within them, because they will serve as transfer stations or something like that, of which the PROs actually can help. I know HAPROC may mention on this, but I know time is going. The PROs are also able to audit and verify the recycling outcomes so that they know if this is a path they will continue taking, what's supposed to be modified, what's supposed to be improved, or what's supposed to be dropped. But they are also able to advise manufacturers to redesign the products so that they are more recyclable or reusable in a way. In that, it reduces the volumes of the waste across the stream. The PROs are also able to develop recognition programs, and that will encourage and create an incentive for others to go more into it. And again, they are also able to support joint working groups between different stakeholders, these stakeholders being maybe the health authorities, the health facilities, environment agencies like NEMA, the recyclers, so that we are all on one table and finding a better way forward, and to harmonize processes and also provide and also to create our own internal oversight or monitoring if we are improving or not improving. So as a country now, this is a big opportunity for us to take into, but also to look into how we can correct how we can improve our processes. Honestly speaking, incineration has been taken as a solution, not as a solution now, as a stopgap measure, let me use that word, to help as we get into better better treatment systems for our medical waste and also other waste generally. We will just take opportunity what will come with this problem right now. It is very expensive to run the incinerator, mainly because of the energy needs for it, but also the problem it creates at the end, because the fumes, the emissions that come out of it still need to be treated at the end. And the scrubbers we're talking about are damn expensive, and they must be maintained regularly and consistently, which doesn't come easy also. And we've had this problem even with some of the industries, because they are not even able to service them. And these are facilities within they have the money and the resources. But for us to be able to facilitate recycling and everything, it still goes back to how do we handle our waste from the beginning, because they have to be separated in streams that can then be treated separately according to their different components. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Stella. That was very, very, very insightful.
Before we lose, I wanted her to comment on the issue of cross-border movement of hazardous waste, because it's an experience in our county.
Yeah. The cross-border movement for waste as provided in the Basel protocol is the technical guideline. It is interstate, not actually within a country. Because when you look into how it's supposed to be, like if say, for example, somebody wants to export waste from Kenya, they need to apply for a permit for NEMA, but also they must get authorization from the designated national authority or agency in the receiving country. And when you look into those 2 or 3 requirements, the counties do not fall into that category. And when you also look into now coming to reality, our situation as it is, the waste volumes generated in each of our counties may be so limited to encourage establishment of this one big treatment facility or something like that, unless they are just decentralized units with one decentralized transfer or pre-treatment units, so that to prevent infection control, or for infection control rather, and then have this major facility that is doing this other treatment or something like that. So it will even be more encouraged that counties are able to come together and have a joint way of doing it. In fact, at some point, for some of the things we do regarding projects, and even when we look into the water sector, counties are coming together to develop common infrastructure, because so as to limit and to spread the cost per county, but also to harmonize the processes. Mr. Mhonga? Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Is there any other question or comment from the audience up to this point? Go ahead, Haprok.
Okay, thank you once again, and I concur with this what's spoken. And yeah, what PRO is supposed to be doing. Truly, we are looking forward to have a safe way of disposal to avoid the public and environmental contamination. I do believe that for hazardous, and hazardous is different from other waste, because for other waste, they are taking care of the environment, but now we talk about the public health as well as the environment. When presentation was being done from Cambridge, we realized that there are a lot of good mechanisms, and they have to agree that incineration is not the appropriate method at this era. We may need to look at microclaving, or chemical designification. But the do we really have that? Do we really have the capacity or the infrastructure in the country to carry out this activity? Because for us, we are looking forward to start our collection, the 47 counties. And recently we did our TOR for advertisement of who will take care of this waste. And only the incinerators did the application. So we are even worried now at this level, we'll just proceed with the incinerators. And of course, it's not the appropriate method. We didn't look and we didn't see anyone coming saying that we can do autoclave in a microwave, and we'll be so happy because at least we are able to claim that yeah, this is a bit appropriate compared to incineration. So basically, we can say as a country we really need more, and more of it is in, coming up with the facilities, as well as our research to prove that truly this part is still a release out of rancines and a contamination to the environment through the air quality. So basically, as a PROC, we're looking forward of more of this conversation and looking forward to contribute where we can. But I mentioned we are starting to collect, and our area is a bit broad, not just the medical waste alone. I mentioned that we have like 10 fractions, which we believe most of our waste collected should not go for incineration. So we are looking for a solution, and someone who will be able to support that solution. If it's my autoclaving, who is that who's able to support on that? In fact, even now when I get someone who has the capacity, I can even share the TOR so that we can apply and consider look into that when we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Haprok, for that. I
Can
see a
I-
hand from
can I-
Peter. Pardon?
Okay. I just
Yes,
wanted
Shadrach.
to make a right. Yes. I know probably you may not have reached out to some of these big organizations that can be able to handle or address the issue you are raising. Maybe they are not aware, but we can inbox me so that I can connect you to can easily probably handle as per your expectations.
Haprok, I hope you've noted that. Peter Ogwell.
Sure.
Okay.
Peter.
Yes, if you do a desktop review of evolution of medical waste, you'll find that we have come a long way. And some of the suggestions that had been made earlier, some of them had gaps that were supposed to be addressed. Apart from autoclaving and other forms of disinfection, the challenge that was posed by medical waste, especially sharps, was the sharp component of medical waste. How are they to be managed? At some point, we had some cutters. You will find that after an injection, you will cut the needle, it will fall on a container, and then you will put the plastic part separately. Now, what was to happen after that? Of course, after the decontamination, then eventually we'll go to, we had a hole where they'll be disposed, hoping that they generate with time, they will rust, and of course, they won't persist for long in the environment. And then we'll remain with the plastic part. After decontamination, this part will be very useful in recycling. That will happen. But being what the waste we are dealing with was medical waste, which is infectious. The gap was now transitioning from after the cutting of the needle part, the contamination, and then what next? That gap was supposed to be addressed. If you had done that one early enough, then the issue of sharps and of course the syringes will have been sorted out. Now we came up with the disinfection that we are using now at UTRH. We ended up having piles and piles of waste that were there. I don't know how Mahonga managed to get rid with them. I don't know where they ended up. Up to now, we still don't know. And that thing has broken down. My suggestion is that we have a sort of a meeting of technical bench that will discuss and review all this effort that had been made in trying to handle medical waste, because we are moving away from burnt processes, which of course will take a bit of time before we reach where we want to reach. And then we look at the gaps that have existed that have made it very difficult for us to still continue to go back to incineration as the cheapest form for us to dispose this medical waste. I think a very good write-up will come out of this, that kind of meeting. That will go a long way in trying to solve this problem. On the issue of transportation of and even licensing of medical waste collectors, this is another area that is very, very touchy, because one, you give a license to a private collector, you don't know the capacity of this private collector. They pick the waste. Of course, you're supposed to monitor and track how they are going to, where they're going to dispose them. But most of the time, we don't know where these waste end up in. Sometimes we meet them along the road, we live on the drain. Sometimes we meet them on the banks of the rivers. It happens. You have those experiences. Sometimes we meet them in the open. Yet you have paid this person to go and dispose them. So the assessment of the capacity of these individuals must be done. Secondly, in dealing with the audit, finally, if they're dealing with the audits processes, it will be very easy and very cheap to carry out this process by involving the key individuals in the regulatory framework in the built environment. We have so many of these individuals who are able to contribute to a document that will really, when you say that this particular process is fine, then all other agencies have been involved. And therefore, we have no doubt about the findings. So that's my take for now. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you, Mr. Peter Obwek, for your input. That was very insightful. Any other comment from the audience apart from the speakers before we conclude our... Yes, Mr. Kipchirchir, go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Cornelius Kipchirchir from Cambridge, Nairobi. My question is to someone I heard is from NEMA. Last year, we gave out our audit report to NEMA, our environmental audit report to NEMA. Up to date, they have not reviewed. They just gave us an acknowledgement letter. So why are they taking so long? Yet this one is a compliance issue. Thank you.
Hi, Cornelius. I'm sorry about that. I would wish to know if this was submitted to NEMA headquarters or to the county, so that I can just redirect you. I can ask for you. We've also just shifted our online systems, so there could also be that issue about the changeover from one system to the other, but that's no excuse actually. If you may share the details, no problem. Sorry.
Okay, Stella, thank you for that response. I think what we can do, we can share contacts so that I can give you further details on the same, but we submitted to NEMA headquarters here in South Sea.
Good. Moving on swiftly. Thank you, Marta, for the information in the chat. Good. Any other comment from the audience before we we conclude our meeting. Very well. If there is no any other comment, I would like to thank you all for joining us today at this virtual workshop. Your active participation. Is there,
Hello.
there is somebody speaking?
Yes. Are we giving our remarks first before you conclude?
A moment, Shadraka. Cornelius, do you have something still to say?
Yes, I have something. I was with my colleague. We were following this session together, and he had also a contribution. So maybe he can just add something.
Good morning, team.
Morning.
I'm Chetro Kibaruse. I've been a technologist on the incineration plants and autoclaving. So what I wanted to bring across to you, team, is the statutory requirement for the autoclaving, and that this is a pressurized vessel which needs to be subjected to statutory inspection and certification annually by the DOSH approved personnel. So in your planning, you should input that statutory compliance when you are working on the overall plan on waste management. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kipchirchir. I see your hand raised up again.
Okay, I'm sorry, that was a wrong call.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, good. I was giving my closing remarks. So I will start by Mr. Walter, who was one of our speakers, to give his closing remarks. Then Stella, then we'll conclude by Shadrach Mahonga. Then I will give the final remarks. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Walter.
Okay, thank you, Madam Helen, and the entire team. I want to say thanks for such kind of workshop. And my urge or request is that let's try to be an agent of change wherever we are. And let's ensure that we try to embrace the good practices that will enhance our safety, the facility safety, the community safety, and everyone involved. And let's at all time try to ensure that we emphasize on the importance of proper waste management practices that is geared towards reducing the waste, reusing, recycling, and also if now things cannot work, then now we go to the last options that actually now the landfill and of course the incineration. And if it is incineration, we have to ensure that it follows the NEMA requirement of the scrubber and all that is needed to ensure that what is coming out of it is very safe to the community. But again, as the practitioners, let us ensure that the waste segregation is done properly and appropriately by the generator at the source. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we look forward to having more of this engagement. Thank you.
Very well, Mr. Walter. Now we move on to Madam Stella. Your final remarks, please.
Thank you, everyone, for your presence and for the elaborate discussions. I would wish to take this platform to ask the one project for one big engagement. Looking at waste generally, besides just the issue of healthcare waste, looking at waste as a value chain, waste management as a value chain. I desire that we have, and it's my hope that the one project can do this, that all the stakeholders in the value chain, we can be brought together to this discussion table, looking at waste also from the business side. We have the PRO, one PRO here. There are other PROs who can still take opportunity from what is available on the table. Bringing together the generators, that's the healthcare facilities, the regulators from the Ministry of Health, Occupational Health, Poisons and Pharmaceuticals, NEMA, and any other that I may not have mentioned. The business actors in this sector, and even advocacy institutions, the NGOs who have relevance in this field. That on that discussion, we are able to bring out the opportunities that are available currently and even kickstart that process. Because we have seen successes where there has been action in a particular direction. Like, for example, the issue about the Kenya National Cleaner Production Center on the Resource Efficiency and Pollution Prevention Project. And people, when the facilities and the entities see the benefit, for example, the energy savings several industries have had, then it invigorates other similar agencies or even outside that particular spectrum to also take up. So there are opportunities that we can take on, and it is going to help all of us in doing this, in taking this forward to a better direction, so that we shift from what is dirtier to the environment to what is more cleaner and healthier, and also cheaper for our health facilities. We recognize that these are government operated, most of them. Actually, the ones that are more better operated are the private sector, healthcare facilities. The issue about resources can be tackled if certain costs are eliminated in the process, for example, just in waste management. And we will also see, as the issue has been raised, how do we self-monitor ourselves to reduce the cost of environmental auditing and also environmental monitoring. All the best to all of us as we look to better days ahead. Thank you.
Very well, Madam Stella. Now we move on to our last speaker, Mr. Shadrach Mahonga. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Helen, for this particular opportunity to discuss this very important topic on waste management. I'm really been enriched with the sentiments from our fellow partners and the attendees who have really given us very good insights that we need to forge ahead and plan. And on this point, then some issues have come through that I think we want to emphasize the need for partnerships in handling this issue of waste management. Institutions alone might not really come out and they do this waste management satisfactorily. Therefore, there is need. There are gaps. We still have gaps that require partners to come in and help, especially when we are talking of medical waste. It's an area that we really require partnerships. In fact, infrastructure development still a major issue in our system because of the cost implication. So I'm just encouraging partners who are on this call, if we can work around and get some support on how we can develop our infrastructure to handle medical waste, that would go a long way in actually helping this issue. There is also the gap on sensitization, staff sensitizations. This is also an area where I think probably our partners like Pamela Steele, if you can come in, we still need to sensitize our staff and especially the management. The management needs to be sensitized so that they can embrace the issue of waste management. Currently, when we are doing the budget allocations, you will find that waste management in facilities not even given budget. And therefore, these people start weighing between, do I buy drugs? Do I budget for waste management? Now they look at waste management as a bother and forgetting that the processes that happen at hospital are the ones who have now created that problem in the first place. So there is a need for our managers in hospitals to give waste issues, medical waste management, that very, very, very keen interest so that they allocate money to handle. And when they do that, it is for the benefit of the hospital, it's the benefit for the public, it's benefit for everyone. But currently, in fact, they don't give it that prominence that it deserves at operational level. So there is a need for continuous advocacy and sensitization. The staffs, the area of segregation, separation of waste is a big issue in our hospital still. And I think this is an area where we can come in strongly with our partners and make sure that our staff are sensitized. Medical waste, even when you look at value addition in the end product, becomes very tricky because you are not very sure whether that product is safe enough to be handled to do something else. So medical waste require a lot of care and sensitization, and I think we can't do it alone. That's why we are requiring our partners to come in and arrange for us. The other area where I think probably our partners can also help, we have good practices happening elsewhere. Madam Stella mentioned about autoclaving in Nairobi, Kenyatta. These particular interventions, our staffs here have not, or even our managers have not been exposed. But if there is a way we can harness that and do some benchmarking by taking some of our managers and go and see what the best practices that are happening elsewhere, probably that would change and we embrace some of these new technologies that are coming up. So this benchmarking issue cannot really be downplayed. It's very important. But now who is going to support such intervention becomes also a problem. There is also need for continuous dissemination of guidelines. And our agencies know that there are so many guidelines that are not really being used because people are ignorant. I remember Peter asking about whether some of these posters and guidelines have been disseminated. I think that is an area where we can organize ourselves and see these existing guidelines. We have local, like the county has some guidelines on medical waste management, has yet to be adequately disseminated. Though we are already using it, but it has not really been sensitized. We also have national guidelines and policies that have not even reached facilities, for example. And this is an area where our partnerships also come in very handy. And it's not only this waste we know. I know NEMA, there is a CS last year on December released a circular about these asbestos roofs. That is a long way also. It's part of our controlling of environment. And this particular venture requires partnership from our partners outside the line ministries so that we can come out collectively as a county and address some of these emerging issues on waste management. Otherwise, thank you very much, Madam Helen and your organization for having done a wonderful job in our county. We can testify for your interventions. It has gone a long way. In fact, in one of the institutions where your presence is felt, they had asked for more of your murals so that they are placed, because a very big hospital like JOTRH, only one mural at one point is not serving because people who are circulating there are many, and they would like to have such murals in several points so that the message is clear to accessible to everyone. Otherwise, thank you very much, everyone. for listening in. Thank you.
Oh, wow, thank you, Mr. Shadrach and Madam Stella and Mr. Walter Olo for very good remarks. Each of you who has attended today and those ones who are not here have been quite instrumental throughout this project from the time it started until now. So I would just want to thank you very, very much for your input in this project, not just really this virtual workshop, but the project itself, since it started from the research, from the awareness campaign up to this point. Particularly, I would like to thank the organizations that we did interview: Kisumu County Leadership, Ministry of Health, CEC, Dr. Ganda, for their very, very good collaboration with us to ensure that we are driving the change towards safe medical waste management. And so to just wrap it up, I want to thank each and every one of you in the audience for joining us today at this virtual workshop. You've been very active in participating, and because of that, the event has been very impactful. I hope that we are walking away with a deep understanding of the environmental and health risks that is associated with incineration, and also the practical ideas that will drive change to ensure that we have a safe way to manage our, not only our medical waste, but generally our waste. So as we wrap up, I want to encourage each and every one of you to stay connected, to continue the conversation that has been sparked today, and also apply what we've learned to drive a meaningful change. So a special thanks to our speakers and all the organizers for this workshop. I think it has been a success. And I just want to thank everyone again for being part of it. And I want to just finish it all, I want to thank my boss, Madam Pam Steele, for the support as well. So moving forward, I know we'll keep on interacting, and we'll see how this goes. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.